foreign editor. Now we move on to our next story. The Iran-Israel war has entered its 5th day, with intense strikes continuing on both sides. In the latest development, air raid sirens blared across Israel as the army warns of incoming missiles from Iran. Citizens rushed to shelters amid rising tensions. Loud booms were heard over Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as the Israeli Air Force moved to intercept these threats. Overall, Iran reports 224 deaths, mostly civilians. Israel confirms 24 civilian deaths and thousands displaced. The Israeli military says it is now a safe place for citizens to leave shelters and confirms the death of Iran's armed forces chief of staff. Overnight, Israel carried out extensive strikes on western Iran, targeting missile sites, UAV facilities, and air defenses. A strike on Iran's state broadcaster killed 3 and wounded several others. Israel also hit the Natanz nuclear site, destroying nearly 15,000 centrifuges, confirmed by the UN. Iran responded with fresh missile attacks on Tel Aviv and Haifa, killing at least 8 people and damaging homes and a power station. Air raid sirens continue to sound in Israel as well. Panic is growing in Tehran, where thousands are fleeing the capital. Diplomatic pressure is rising. Britain, France, and Germany urged Iran to return to nuclear talks as soon as possible. According to a French diplomatic source, Iran says it is open to talks but is focused on responding to Israel's aggression right now. EU's Ursula von der Leyen posted a tweet saying that the G7 is committed to peace and stability in the Middle East. She urges resolving the Iranian crisis and calls for a Gaza ceasefire while monitoring energy markets. US President Donald Trump has proposed a ceasefire and warned Iran against further escalation. Talks in Oman were cancelled. China is urging its citizens to leave Israel immediately. Oil prices jumped over 2% on hopes for a ceasefire as back-channel talks continue. Israel says it still controls Iranian airspace and may intensify strikes in the coming days. Now we have a breaking news. The Israeli military says it has killed Iran's wartime chief of staff, not Iran's armed forces chief of staff, in a targeted strike. Now we move on to next story. A deadly night in Kyiv. At least 14 people have been killed and 44 others injured after waves of Russian missiles and drones struck the Ukrainian capital in one of the largest attacks since the war began. Ukraine's interior minister says 27 locations were hit, including residential buildings, schools, and critical infrastructure in Kyiv's Solomiansky district. A ballistic missile destroyed part of a 9-story building. Rescue teams are still searching for survivors. Among the dead, a 62-year-old U.S. citizen who was killed by shrapnel while sheltering near a medic site. Air raid sirens rang for over 7 hours as drones swarmed the city. Witnesses reported hearing multiple explosions. Other regions also came under attack. 1 person injured near Kyiv and 13 more injured in Odessa. Kyiv officials say Russia is targeting civilians in a counter-claim. Moscow says it shot down 147 Ukrainian drones over Russian territory, including in the Moscow region. In related developments, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed interest in discussing the purchase of U.S. weapons with U.S. President Donald Trump, despite Trump leaving the G7 summit early over Middle East tensions. The conflict continues to escalate as both sides sustain heavy casualties, including reported North Korean soldiers fighting alongside Russia. Now we have another breaking news. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia launched more than 440 drones and 32 missiles in a massive overnight strike across Ukraine. The attack marks one of the most intense barrages in weeks, causing widespread damage and casualties. Now we move on to our next story. According to Gaza health officials, at least 34 Palestinians were reportedly killed Monday as Israeli troops didn't open fire near aid distribution centers. Witnesses say crowds were trying to reach food handouts when gunfire erupted near the southern city of Rafah and in central Gaza. Israel's military has not commented on Monday's incident, but has previously said warning shots were fired at suspects approaching military positions. Meanwhile, the UN human rights chief called Israel's campaign horrifying and urged both Israel and Hamas to end the violence immediately. As the humanitarian crisis deepens, he urged governments worldwide to pressure both Israel and Hamas to end the bloodshed and address the worsening humanitarian crisis. Now we move on to Europe. Early Tuesday, Kyiv was hit by waves of Russian